Level 1. Subnormal intelligence. At the lowest end, thought flickers like a candle nearly swallowed by wind. The mind cannot always hold patterns, cannot always hold words, but it still holds feelings. Warmth, tone, presence, these guide more than logic ever could. People here may never live alone, but they live within connection, sensing kindness, fear, frustration. Their world is sensory, emotional, deeply immediate. Truth here is not numbers, but the simple recognition of love, joy, or pain. What is intelligence, if not the ability to touch another heart? Level 2. Below average. Here the climb is steep, but steady. Thinking feels slower, abstract concepts slip away, and repetition becomes the key to learning. Tasks thrive in structure, in rhythm, in the reassurance of routine. School feels like a burden, but life still offers paths where patience and loyalty shine. Emotions run deep here, and empathy is strong, forged through struggle and misunderstanding. People at this level may not dazzle with theory, but they move the world with persistence. What matters more, speed of thought or depth of heart? Level 3. Average. This is the great middle, where most of humanity stands. The mind functions reliably, reading, writing, solving daily puzzles. Choices weigh against consequences, lessons are learned, and life continues on paths of balance. Average minds keep society running. Teachers, drivers, builders, parents. Yet this level carries a quiet danger. Comfort tricks many into thinking they know enough. Curiosity fades, questions vanish. To feel certain is not to be right. Is stability the peak of wisdom, or the plateau before deeper discovery? Level 4. Above average. Here thought sharpens, moving faster, finding connections others miss. Patterns emerge before they fully form, and puzzles open like doors already unlocked. School feels too slow, conversations drag, and patience frays as the world moves at a weaker rhythm. Above average minds thrive in systems, in logic, in strategy, yet isolation creeps in because few keep pace. Silence becomes safer, detachment easier. Intelligence here is powerful, but lonely if not balanced with compassion. Does speed of thought bring freedom, or the weight of distance? Level 5. High intelligence. Now thought leaps across space, solving before the problem is fully spoken. Patterns swirl, unseen by most, but clear as glass to the gifted mind. Schoolwork is too simple, lessons feel unnecessary, and curiosity races toward the unknown. Yet emotions stumble behind, leaving one restless, searching for understanding. High intelligence innovates, but it also isolates. The mind hungers for challenge, but the heart longs for belonging. Is this level a blessing, or a puzzle even the self cannot solve? Level 6. Gifted. Here the spark burns brighter, fast, creative, restless. A gifted mind does not just learn, it invents. It builds bridges between ideas, connects what seems unrelated, and pushes thought far beyond expectation. A child here may write symphonies or craft machines from scraps, but the same fire brings struggle, frustration with slow systems, with misunderstood emotions, with being different. Giftedness is brilliance entwined with burden. To think so deeply is to live both ahead of time and slightly apart from it. Level 7. Genius. Genius breaks the mold entirely. It does not follow systems, it rebuilds them. Rules are questioned, truths are rearranged. These are the Einsteins, the minds who tilt the very axis of human thought. Genius does not merely run faster, it runs differently, but it feels less like triumph and more like exile. To think in alien patterns is to live among misunderstanding. Praise comes late, if at all. Is genius liberation? Or is it a kind of solitude disguised as brilliance? Level 8. Poem. At this stage, intelligence stretches wide. Not just depth, but range. A polymath thrives across worlds, art, science, invention, philosophy. Knowledge does not remain separate. It weaves together. Leonardo da Vinci drew machines as easily as he painted angels. Franklin shaped politics and science alike. To be a polymath is to see unity where others see fragments. But mastery demands endless time, devotion, and solitude. Is the human mind meant to specialize or to explore endlessly without boundary? Level 9. Visionary. Visionary minds reach past the present. They imagine what does not yet exist and then drag it into reality. They see futures invisible to most, possibilities hidden inside impossibility. A visionary does not merely solve problems, they reinvent the stage where problems arise. But this gift carries rejection. Society resists, ridicules, doubts. Still, visionaries persist, willing to leap into darkness while others cling to light. What is more real, the present we inhabit, or the future one daring mind dares to dream? Level 10. Transcendent. The highest step is not brilliance, but surrender. Intelligence dissolves into awareness. Here, knowing is not about answers, but about presence. The transcendent mind sees through illusions, through ego, through the cage of identity itself. What is truth? What is real? These questions are not to be solved, but absorbed. This level whispers instead of shouts. It guides by stillness, not by domination. To transcend is not to rise above, but to dissolve into what always was. Level 11. Intuitive. Here intelligence begins to move quietly beneath thought, like a river flowing under the surface of words. Intuition feels like knowing without reason, sensing without proof, arriving at truth without visible steps. This mind listens to whispers, to patterns unseen, to emotions before they take form. Intuitive people often cannot explain how they know, only that they do. The world calls it instinct, but it is more a silent compass, pointing toward unseen truths. Here intelligence does not argue, it simply arrives, leaving the question, is the deepest wisdom thought, or is it felt? Level 12. Creative. At this level, thought turns playful, bending the ordinary into something new. Creativity does not follow paths, it forges them. Problems become puzzles, and puzzles become art. A creative mind paints with words, builds with sound, reshapes the familiar until it feels alive again. It thrives in metaphors, in symbols, in new ways of seeing. But creativity is fragile too. It feels misunderstood, undervalued, or wasted in rigid systems. To imagine is to risk ridicule. Yet without imagination, progress freezes. Intelligence here asks, is truth found or invented? Level 13. Analytical. Now intelligence becomes a blade, sharp and deliberate. The analytical mind breaks things down, step by step, rule by rule. It dissects, compares, calculates. No detail is too small, no inconsistency overlooked. Numbers, logic, data, all become the language of understanding. But analysis can also paralyze, for when everything is broken apart, meaning can disappear in the fragments. The analytical sees the gears, but sometimes forgets the music they produce. Is knowledge more than its parts, or does truth live only in the pieces? Level 14. Practical. Here thought grounds itself. Simple, useful, strong. The practical mind may not soar into abstraction, but it builds what lasts. It measures twice, cuts once, and leaves behind something solid. While others dream in clouds, this mind lays stone in the earth. It thrives in routine, in function, in the comfort of reliability. Yet the practical mind is often underestimated, dismissed as ordinary, but without it, bridges collapse, houses crumble, systems fail. Is brilliance found in theory, or in the hands that keep the world standing? Level 15. Emotional. At this stage, intelligence rests not in logic, but in feeling. Emotional intelligence understands hearts more than equations. It senses tone, rhythm, expression. It knows when silence is needed and when comfort heals. Empathy becomes the guide, kindness the measure of wisdom, but emotions are double-edged. They can cloud judgment or sharpen it. They can guide us to truth or blind us to it. Yet without emotional depth, even genius becomes cold, lifeless. What is knowledge worth if it cannot care? Level 16. Adaptive. Here intelligence bends like water. It changes shape depending on what it meets. In chaos, it finds order. In failure, it finds lessons. The adaptive mind is flexible, resilient, never trapped in one way of thinking. It thrives in survival, in uncertainty, in change. Yet this flexibility can also blur identity. For when you can become anything, what are you truly? Adaptation is strength, but also surrender. Is the truest intelligence the ability to endure, or the courage to remain unchanged? Level 17. Social. Now intelligence turns outward, toward connection. The social mind reads people like books, sensing motives, desires, and fears. It thrives in groups, weaving harmony, persuading, leading. Here, success depends less on logic and more on presence, yet this mind can be manipulative too, bending others for its own gain. Social intelligence is power, soft, invisible, but undeniable to understand. Another is to hold influence over them. Is intelligence what we know, or how we move the hearts of others? Level 18. Strategic. At this level, thought stretches beyond the moment. The strategic mind plays games of time, of cause and effect. It moves pieces not for today, but for tomorrow. Every choice becomes part of a larger map, every step part of an unseen plan. Strategy thrives in leaders, in generals, in visionaries who shape destiny rather than follow it. But strategy can also sacrifice the present, trading connection for control. Is intelligence foresight, or does it risk becoming obsession with what has not yet come? Level 19. Philosophical. Here thought slows, deepens, and turns inward. The philosophical mind is not satisfied with answers, only with the pursuit of them. It questions reality itself, peeling back layers of meaning, identity, truth. What is free will? What is the self? What is the good? These are not riddles to be solved, but mirrors for the soul. Yet philosophy can trap itself in circles, drifting endlessly with no conclusion. Is the value of intelligence in certainty, or in the eternal asking? Level 20. Spiritual. At this point, intelligence begins to dissolve the walls of the mind. It senses something beyond thought, beyond language. The spiritual intelligence sees patterns not just in logic, but in existence itself. It feels the connection between self and universe, between inner silence and outer infinity. Here, knowledge becomes wisdom, wisdom becomes compassion, and compassion becomes transcendence. Yet spirituality is fragile too, often dismissed or lost in dogma. Is the highest form of intelligence found in the mind or in the soul? Level 21. Logical. Here intelligence becomes a framework, strong, steady, mathematical in its clarity. The logical mind sees structure where others see noise. It trusts in order, in steps, in conclusions that follow unbroken lines. Arguments are weighed, contradictions revealed, fallacies dismantled. Truth feels clean here, sharp as glass, reliable as stone. But logic can also harden, blind to emotion, dismissive of mystery. To live only in logic is to reduce life to equations, forgetting that the heart resists formulas. Is intelligence the certainty of proof, or the acceptance that not all truth fits into lines? Level 22. Moral. At this stage, intelligence bends toward what is right, not just what is possible. The moral mind weighs choices not only by outcome, but by meaning. It considers fairness, kindness, harm, and dignity. It asks not only can I, but should I? Moral intelligence holds humanity together, creating trust, law, community. But morality is slippery, different across cultures, shaped by time and belief. To stand in it requires courage, the willingness to choose good even at a cost. Is the greatest intelligence found in brilliance or in integrity? Level 23. Curious. Here intelligence stretches outward, restless. Insatiable, the curious mind hungers not for answers, but for questions. Every door invites opening, every mystery pulls closer. Curiosity learns for its own sake, turning life into a series of discoveries. It thrives in wonder, in experimentation, in the willingness to admit ignorance just to grow. But curiosity can also scatter, chasing too many threads, leaving none complete. Still, it is the root of every great discovery. Is intelligence the end of learning, or the eternal beginning of it? Level 24. Innovative. At this level, thought transforms into creation. The innovative mind does not merely ask questions, it answers them by building something new. It sees problems as possibilities, limits as invitations, obstacles as raw material. Innovation thrives in invention, in art, in technology, in systems that did not exist before. But innovation is fragile too. Society resists change. Comfort rejects disruption. To innovate is to risk failure, ridicule, even loss. Yet without it, humanity would remain still. Is intelligence about solving old puzzles, or daring to write new ones? Level 25. Metacognitive. Here thought turns back upon itself, becoming self-aware. The metacognitive mind not only thinks, but knows that it is thinking. It questions its own process, refines its methods, improves its learning through reflection. Mistakes become lessons, failures become insights, growth becomes intentional. This intelligence allows one to step outside the mind, to observe the gears turning. But self-awareness can also spiral into doubt, into overthinking, into paralysis. To watch the mind is to risk being trapped in it. Is the highest wisdom knowing more, or knowing how we know? Level 26. Cultural. Now intelligence widens into the shared human fabric. The cultural mind understands context, stories, traditions. It reads meaning not only in facts, but in history and collective memory. To be culturally intelligent is to adapt across worlds, to honor differences while finding common ground. This mind thrives in empathy, in translation, in bridging divides. Yet culture can also trap, shaping thought into cages of assumption. Cultural brilliance asks us to question not only what we believe, but why we believe it. Is intelligence personal, or is it woven into the tapestry of humanity? Level 27. Reflective. Here the mind slows into stillness, reflecting on what has been, what is, and what might come. Reflection gathers scattered experiences, reshapes them into lessons, and plants them deep into memory. A reflective mind sees patterns in life itself, not just in numbers or words. It asks, what did this mean, and what can be carried forward? But reflection can slip into regret, into longing for what cannot be undone. Still, wisdom grows only through remembering. Is intelligence about moving fast, or about pausing long enough to see clearly? Level 28. Existential. At this point, intelligence reaches into the void. The existential mind confronts the ultimate questions. Why are we here? What is meaning? What is death? It stares into uncertainty without flinching, holding paradox as truth and mystery as reality. This mind does not demand comfort, it accepts unease. Yet existential thought can weigh heavy, leaving some lost in dread, overwhelmed by emptiness. Still, it pushes us to face what is real, not just what is easy. Is the truest intelligence the pursuit of answers, or the courage to live without them? Level 29. Pattern seeking. Here the mind hunts for threads in the chaos. Patterns emerge everywhere, shapes in clouds, cycles in history, rhythms in thought. The pattern seeker finds links where none are obvious, weaving order from noise. This intelligence builds science, mathematics, art, all grounded in repetition and symmetry. Yet it can mislead too, finding connections where there are none, birthing superstition, paranoia, obsession. To see patterns is to shape meaning, but also to risk illusion. Is reality a web we discover, or one we invent to quiet the unknown? Level 30. Ethical. Now thought grows heavier, anchored in responsibility. The ethical mind asks, what do my choices mean for others? It balances freedom with duty, progress with consequence. Ethical intelligence shapes justice, law, and trust. It guides not only what we can achieve, but how we should achieve it. Yet ethics are fragile, shifting across cultures, twisted by power. To stand firm requires courage, the ability to resist both temptation and fear. Is intelligence measured by brilliance, or by the choices that keep humanity human? Level 31. Symbolic. Here intelligence speaks in images, in metaphors, in signs that carry meaning beyond words. The symbolic mind understands that a flag is not cloth, but belonging, that a ring is not metal, but promise. Symbols compress vast truths into a single form, shaping rituals, religions, and shared identity. Yet symbols can mislead, becoming idols when their meaning is forgotten. A mind at this level knows the difference between symbol and truth, but still honors the power they hold. Is reality what we see, or the meanings we assign? Level 32. Conceptual. At this stage, intelligence gathers fragments into structures of thought. The conceptual mind builds frameworks, theories, models. It takes scattered data and lifts it into patterns that explain. Concepts make the invisible visible, turning chaos into order. Science and philosophy thrive here, born from the ability to hold vast ideas in the mind's eye. Yet concepts are not reality, only maps of it. To confuse one for the other is to walk forever in circles. Is intelligence the making of models, or the wisdom to know they are illusions? Level 33. Abstract. Now thought leaves the ground entirely, soaring into realms where no objects remain. Numbers float freely, ideas detach from matter, and imagination grows unchained. The abstract mind can play with infinity, with time, with dimensions unseen. It thrives in mathematics, philosophy, art that breaks the limits of form, yet abstraction risks losing touch, leaving behind the earthbound truths of daily life. To live only in abstraction is to drift without anchor. Is intelligence in the heights of thought, or in the balance between the real and the imagined? Level 34. Linguistic. Here intelligence blooms through words, through the alchemy of language. The linguistic mind shapes reality by naming it, binding chaos into meaning with syllables and sound. It thrives in poets, writers, speakers who move nations with sentences. To speak well is to command thought itself, to place ideas directly into the minds of others. Yet language can betray, hiding lies behind beauty, or confusing sound with truth. The power of words is immense, but fragile too. Is intelligence in what we say, or in what remains unsaid? Level 35. Mathematical. At this level, intelligence sharpens into pure precision. The mathematical mind lives in numbers, in ratios, in structures hidden beneath the visible world. Every equation is a truth waiting to be revealed. From the orbit of planets, to the code in machines, to the rhythms of music, math holds it all, but numbers are cold, indifferent, and without context they remain hollow. The mathematician may master infinity, yet forget the warmth of the finite moment. Is reality truly written in numbers, or do numbers only describe its shadow? Level 36. Musical. Here thought turns to rhythm, harmony, vibration. The musical mind hears patterns in sound that others miss. Notes are not just heard, they are felt, bridges between heart and intellect. Music becomes both structure and emotion, discipline and freedom, logic and love at once. This intelligence shapes composers, performers, and listeners who lose themselves in resonance. Yet music too can overwhelm, seducing without substance, stirring emotion without clarity. Is intelligence in the mastery of sound, or in the silence between the notes? Level 37. Bodily kinesthetic. Now intelligence flows into movement, into the wisdom of the body. The kinesthetic mind thinks through muscles, through balance, through the artistry of motion. Athletes, dancers, craftsmen, here knowledge lives not in books, but in bone and skin. To move with precision is to think without words, to express truth through form. Yet society often undervalues this level, mistaking physical mastery for something lesser. But the body remembers what the mind forgets, carrying intelligence in ways unseen. Is knowledge stored in thought, or in the rhythm of movement itself? Level 38. Naturalistic. At this stage, intelligence turns toward the earth. The naturalistic mind reads landscapes like books, senses cycles, understands the language of life itself. It sees the migration of birds, the whisper of seasons, the hidden networks beneath forests. Farmers, biologists, wanderers, this mind connects human existence to nature's rhythm. Yet modern life buries this intelligence, replacing soil with screens. Still, it is here that survival begins and ends. Is the truest wisdom found in technology or in the patience of roots and rivers? Level 39. Interpersonal. Here the mind awakens through others, understanding thoughts, emotions, and motives with uncanny clarity. The interpersonal intelligence reads faces like maps, hears meaning behind words, and feels currents beneath silence. Leaders, teachers, healers, all thrive here. Connection itself becomes intelligence, the ability to weave trust, to dissolve fear, to create unity. Yet this gift can become manipulation, bending people like clay to serve selfish ends. Is intelligence what we know, or what we can awaken in one another? Level 40. Intrapersonal. Now intelligence turns inward, into the depths of the self. The intrapersonal mind knows its own shadows, its desires, its fears, its quiet strengths. Self-awareness becomes both compass and mirror. This intelligence allows honesty with the self, the power to reflect without illusion. Yet self-knowledge can also sting, revealing truths we may wish to hide. Still, to know the self is the foundation of knowing anything at all. Is intelligence the exploration of the outer world, or the courage to travel inward where few dare to go? Level 41. Inventive. Here intelligence becomes restless in the best way, refusing to accept what already exists as final. The inventive mind takes the ordinary, bends it, reshapes it, and births something no one has seen before. It thrives in the spark between problem and possibility, between limitation and opportunity. Invention requires courage, because to make something new is also to risk ridicule, rejection, or failure. But without the inventive mind, there is no wheel, no engine, no light, no cure. Is intelligence measured in what we know, or in what we dare to bring into being? Level 42. Experimental. At this stage, thought becomes a laboratory. The experimental mind does not settle for theories. It tests them, it pokes, it prods, it risks breaking things just to see how they work. It embraces trial and error, valuing failure as much as success. Every mistake is not an ending, but a doorway to learning. The experimental thrives in curiosity, in play, in the willingness to fall and rise again. Yet it can also drift into chaos, chasing novelty for its own sake. Is the heart of intelligent certainty, or is it the endless willingness to test the unknown? Level 43. Collaborative. Here the mind learns its greatest secret. No one is intelligent alone. The collaborative intelligence thrives in groups, where ideas collide and combine into something greater. One mind builds, another refines, a third connects the missing piece. This is the intelligence of teamwork, of shared vision, of co-creation. Alone, brilliance can falter, but together it multiplies. Yet collaboration also demands humility, the surrender of ego, the acceptance that others hold pieces of the truth you cannot. Is the highest intelligence found in the self, or in the spaces between people? Level 44. Critical. Now intelligence sharpens into scrutiny, a lens that sees cracks where others see perfection. The critical mind questions assumptions, dissects arguments, exposes flaws, and refuses to be blinded by easy answers. It is skeptical, demanding, sometimes harsh, but it saves us from deception, from illusion, from error. Yet, critical thought can also corrode, tearing everything down without building anew. If left unchecked, it becomes cynicism, a prison of doubt. Is true intelligence the power to dismantle, or the wisdom to rebuild after the breaking? Level 45. Imaginative. At this level, the mind lives in possibility, wandering freely through what does not yet exist. Imagination is intelligence dreaming with open eyes. It creates worlds, stories, visions that defy limitation. A child playing with shadows, an artist painting stars, a thinker weaving futures. This is imagination's home. Yet imagination can seduce, leading us into fantasies with no anchor. But without it, there is no art, no science, no leap beyond what is given. Is intelligence the ability to see what is, or to envision what might be? Level 46. Systemic. Here intelligence expands into networks, seeing the parts not in isolation, but as a living whole. The systemic mind understands that a forest is not just trees, but soil, water, weather, roots, and time intertwined. It sees cause and effect stretching across generations, across ecosystems, across societies. This mind prevents short-term fixes that create long-term collapse. Yet systems are vast, overwhelming, and often beyond full control. Still, systemic thought reminds us, every choice ripples outward. Is intelligence knowing one fact, or sensing the endless web of connection? Level 47. Contextual. Now thought becomes aware of setting, of circumstance, of timing. The contextual mind knows that truth without context can become falsehood. A word spoken in one culture heals, in another it offends. A decision that saves today may destroy tomorrow. Contextual intelligence sees not just the fact, but the frame that holds it. It balances nuance, considers history, weighs perspective. Yet too much context can paralyze, drowning action in endless hesitation. Is intelligence absolute, or forever bound to the moment in which it lives? Level 48. Synthetic. At this stage, intelligence fuses, bringing fragments into unity. The synthetic mind does not merely gather knowledge, it weaves it together into something greater than the sum of its parts. It connects science with art, philosophy with mathematics, memory with vision. This level thrives in integration, in harmony, in the creation of coherent wholes. Yet synthesis requires patience, for not all pieces fit easily, and sometimes the pattern made is illusion, a forced unity that hides the truth. Is the essence of intelligence to divide, or to combine? Level 49. Insightful. Here intelligence becomes sudden light, piercing the fog with clarity that feels like revelation. Insight is the moment when confusion collapses, when the answer arrives whole, as if whispered by the universe itself. This mind leaps where others crawl, connecting threads in an instant. But insight is unpredictable, a lightning strike, a rare gift that cannot always be commanded. It can illuminate truth or mislead with false brilliance that only seems certain. Is intelligence the slow grind of logic, or the spark of insight that changes everything in a breath? Level 50. Wise. At this level, intelligence matures into something quieter, deeper, slower than brilliance. Wisdom is not knowing everything, but knowing what matters. It balances knowledge with humility, experience with compassion. The wise mind does not rush. It listens, waits, and chooses carefully. Wisdom knows when to speak, and when silence is stronger. It sees that every answer is also a question, and every truth carries its shadow. Wisdom may not dazzle like genius, but it guides, it protects, it sustains. Is the highest intelligence speed or stillness? Level 51. Pragmatic. Here intelligence bends toward usefulness, the art of doing what works. The pragmatic mind is less concerned with elegance, more with results. It takes knowledge out of the clouds, sets it firmly in the soil, and asks, will this feed us, fix us, help us endure? Pragmatic intelligence solves daily struggles, repairs what is broken, and shapes paths where ideals falter. Yet in its focus on the practical, it can forget the visionary, leaving beauty and possibility behind. Is intelligence proven by flawless theory, or by actions that hold the world together? Level 52. Cautious. At this stage, intelligence learns restraint. The cautious mind does not leap blindly, it measures, hesitates, calculates risk. It senses dangers before they arrive, protecting life by holding back. This is survival sharpened into thought. Yet caution can suffocate, paralyzing movement, smothering potential beneath endless doubt. Still, when balanced, it is wisdom disguised as hesitation, a quiet strength that prevents disaster. Is intelligence the boldness to leap, or the patience to step only when the ground is certain? Level 53. Courageous. Now intelligence discovers bravery, not as recklessness, but as clarity in the face of fear. The courageous mind knows the risks, feels the trembling, but steps forward anyway. Courage transforms knowledge into action, vision into reality. It fuels leaders, inventors, dreamers who dare despite the odds. Yet courage without wisdom can be destruction. Fire without direction. The balance of fear and bravery is fragile, but essential. Is true intelligence found in caution, or in the willingness to move when every instinct says stay? Level 54. Observant. Here the mind grows still, becoming a mirror of the world. The observant intelligence sees what others overlook, notices the subtle, the hidden, the overlooked details that shape reality. It thrives in silence, in careful watching, in patient listening. But observation without interpretation risks emptiness, a flood of data without meaning. Still, the observant mind often uncovers truths invisible to the hurried. Is intelligence the act of speaking boldly, or the quiet art of seeing what no one else notices? Level 55. Inventorial. At this stage, thought catalogs, organizes, arranges. The inventorial mind holds vast memory, creating order in detail and abundance. It remembers names, numbers, structures, patterns. It thrives in archives, in records, in the careful preservation of knowledge. Yet too much order can become rigidity, a prison of lists with no room for life's chaos. Still, this level ensures that wisdom is not lost, that discovery does not vanish into silence. Is intelligence the power to create knowledge, or the responsibility to preserve it? Level 56. Dialectical. Here intelligence learns to live in contradiction. The dialectical mind holds opposites at once, allowing tension to create movement. It knows that truth is not static, but evolves through conflict and resolution. Every thesis invites its antithesis, every idea its shadow, every answer its challenge. This intelligence thrives in philosophy, in debate, in growth through dialogue. Yet it risks endless circling, never settling, never resting. Is intelligence the comfort of certainty, or the restless dance between opposing truths? Level 57. Vision building. Now thought reaches beyond imagination into construction. The vision building mind does not merely dream of futures. It maps them, details them, lays foundations before others even see the horizon. Leaders who shift nations, inventors who craft industries, artists who reshape culture, all belong here, but visions require sacrifice, endless work, and resilience against doubt. To build the unseen is to suffer for what others cannot yet believe. Is intelligence the spark of a dream, or the patience to build that dream brick by brick? Level 58. Experimental creative. Here intelligence fuses curiosity with artistry. The experimental creative mind thrives in trying, failing, shaping, breaking, and trying again until beauty or utility emerges. It is science disguised as play, art disguised as inquiry. This intelligence gave us electricity, medicine, and symphonies alike. But this fire can burn chaotic, chasing novelty over depth, leaving fragments instead of legacies. Still, it is the restless edge that pushes humanity forward. Is the essence of intelligence control, or the daring surrender to the unknown? Level 59. Integrative. At this stage, the mind becomes a bridge. The integrative intelligence gathers scattered disciplines, fuses contradictions, and creates coherence where others see division. It thrives in interdisciplinary thought, in connecting math to music, biology to philosophy, art to engineering. Integration offers breakthroughs that specialization alone cannot reach, yet it demands patience, humility, and the courage to wander beyond boundaries. Is intelligence narrow brilliance in one domain, or the weaving together of all domains into a single tapestry? Level 60. Transpersonal. Now intelligence begins to dissolve beyond the self. The transpersonal mind no longer thinks only as I, but as we, as part of something greater. It senses connection across people, across life, across existence itself. Here, thought becomes compassion, vision becomes service, and intelligence is no longer measured by sharpness, but by depth of connection. Yet this level risks loss of identity, a surrender of individuality into the vast unknown. Is the highest intelligence the brilliance of the single mind, or the merging into something beyond the personal self? Level 61. Meta-emotional. Here intelligence learns to see emotions as if from above, not only feeling them, but understanding their patterns, their triggers, their movements through the self. The meta-emotional mind watches sadness like weather, notices anger rising like a tide, and studies joy as if it were a flame. This awareness transforms emotion from chaos into insight, from turbulence into wisdom, yet it can distance one from raw feeling, making life seem studied rather than lived. Still, mastery of emotion gives strength, the ability to choose response over reaction. Is intelligence the power to feel deeply, or the clarity to watch those feelings without drowning? Level 62. Metasocial. At this stage, thought lifts above interaction itself, seeing relationships as networks, as living systems that move like constellations. The metasocial mind understands not only people, but the dynamics between them, the invisible currents of trust, rivalry, loyalty, and influence. It thrives in leaders, organizers, and storytellers who bind groups together. Yet to see these patterns clearly is to risk manipulation, bending connection into control. Still, awareness of the social fabric allows healing, unity, and transformation. Is intelligence the ability to win people, or the wisdom to nurture bonds without chains? Level 63. Metastrategic. Here the mind moves like a grand architect, no longer plotting single moves, but sensing strategies across decades, generations, entire civilizations. The metastrategic mind sees history's cycles, politics tides, and the quiet rise and fall of power. It thrives in visionaries who plan not for tomorrow, but for centuries to come. Yet the weight of such foresight can bring detachment and indifference to the individual in service of the whole. Still, without it, humanity drifts without compass. Is intelligence short-term victory, or the patience to move history itself? Level 64. Existential creative. At this level, intelligence marries the void with imagination. The existential creative mind does not simply ask, "Why are we here?" but responds with art, with poetry, with visions that turn despair into beauty. It transforms the abyss into expression, shaping meaning where none is given. Pain itself becomes palette, emptiness becomes stage. Yet this creativity risks collapse, when the darkness overwhelms the artist within. Still, it is here that the human spirit creates its most haunting, timeless works. Is intelligence the ability to escape the void, or to create within it? Level 65. Transformational. Here intelligence no longer works only within systems, it changes them. The transformational mind alters structures, cultures, institutions. It sees not just improvement, but metamorphosis. Leaders at this level do not polish the old, they dissolve it to birth the new. This intelligence carries immense power, shaping revolutions, movements, renaissances. Yet it carries danger too, for transformation can destroy as easily as it creates. Still, it is the fire through which humanity evolves, is the measure of intelligent stability, or the courage to break the world so it may grow. Level 66. Archetypal. At this stage, thought becomes myth itself. The archetypal mind sees universal patterns repeating through story, through dreams, through history itself. The hero, the shadow, the mother, the trickster, all reveal themselves as eternal truths woven through humanity. This intelligence interprets symbols not as fantasy, but as maps of the unconscious. Yet to live only in archetype is to risk becoming trapped in roles, forgetting individuality beneath the mask. Still, it offers deep wisdom, showing us that our personal story is never only our own. Is intelligence the personal journey, or the recognition that we are echoes of something timeless? Level 67. Cosmic. Here intelligence stretches outward, beyond human, beyond Earth, into the vastness of the cosmos. The cosmic mind contemplates infinity, time without end, the fabric of space itself. It sees the human story as a single breath in the life of the universe. This awareness humbles, inspires, and sometimes terrifies. Yet it can also detach, leaving one feeling small, insignificant. Still, to think cosmically is to glimpse eternity, to hold the stars inside the mind's eye. Is the highest intelligence grounded in daily survival, or in awareness of the infinite? Level 68. Symbol weaving. At this level, thought creates languages of its own, weaving symbols that guide civilizations, religious texts, mathematical codes, artistic masterpieces, all emerge from minds that bind truth into forms carried across generations. Symbol weaving intelligence crafts meaning so deeply it becomes culture itself. Yet power over symbols is power over people, and misuse can enslave just as easily as it inspires. Still, this is the intelligence that builds bridges across centuries. Is intelligence momentary insight, or the ability to create symbols that outlive the self? Level 69. Paradigm shifting. Now intelligence does not simply work within the known, it changes the known entirely. The paradigm-shifting mind asks questions so radical, they break the ground beneath knowledge itself. Einstein reshaped time, Darwin reshaped life, Galileo reshaped the heavens. At this level, reality bends to new frames of thought. Yet paradigm shifters are often punished, exiled, dismissed as mad before they are seen as prophets. Still, they move humanity forward in leaps, not steps. Is intelligence the mastery of knowledge, or the power to rewrite its foundations? Level 70. Transcultural. Here intelligence flows freely across human borders, no longer bound by nation, tribe, or tradition. The transcultural mind absorbs languages, stories, customs, blending them into a mosaic of understanding. It thrives in bridges, in dialogue, in finding unity where others see difference. Yet, transcultural thought risks dilution, a loss of root, a fading of identity into the global sea. Still, it shows us humanity, not as fractured, but as one tapestry woven of many threads. Is intelligence tied to the local, or awakened only when it spans the globe? Level 71. Mythopoetic. Here intelligence transforms into story, not just tales of entertainment, but stories that carry the weight of existence itself. The mythopoetic mind crafts narratives where gods rise, heroes fall, and the soul journeys through darkness into light. It sees life itself as myth, with each person walking an archetypal path. These stories are not mere invention, they are medicine, giving shape to fears, giving voice to longing, giving hope to despair. Yet stories can also deceive, turning into prisons when mistaken for literal truth. Still, it is through myth that meaning survives centuries. Is intelligence found in logic alone, or in the myths we tell ourselves to endure? Level 72. Mystical. At this stage, the mind slips past rational thought into direct encounter with the ineffable, Mystical intelligence perceives unity, the collapse of separation between self and universe. It speaks in visions, in symbols, in silence deeper than words. Mystics throughout history describe it as awakening, enlightenment, the dissolution of the personal into the eternal. Yet the mystical can be dismissed as madness, discounted as illusion. Still, those who touch it carry a calm beyond explanation, a wisdom that radiates without speaking. Is intelligence the brilliance of thought, or the stillness that reveals what thought can never grasp? Level 73. Alchemical. Here intelligence takes the form of transformation, not only of metals, but of minds and souls. The alchemical mind sees opposites as materials to be fused, shadow and light, death and rebirth, ignorance and wisdom. It thrives in metaphors of fire and water, of dissolving and remaking. This intelligence is both scientific and symbolic, blending practical experiment with inner awakening. Yet it risks delusion, the pursuit of gold over growth, power over truth. Still, the alchemical vision whispers, nothing is final, all can be changed. Is intelligence a static possession, or a lifelong process of transmutation? Level 74. Archaeohistorical. At this level, thought bends toward the deep past. The archaeohistorical mind reads ruins, artifacts, languages long dead, and finds in them echoes of what we are now. It sees continuity through millennia, how ancient choices shape modern lives. This intelligence preserves memory not just of self, but of civilizations. Yet it risks nostalgia, drowning in reverence for the past while neglecting the present. Still, to forget history is to lose wisdom written in stone, etched in myth, carried in bone. Is intelligence the pursuit of new frontiers, or the remembering of where we began? Level 75. Techno-creative. Now intelligence fuses with machine, merging art with technology in ways once unthinkable. The techno-creative mind writes code like poetry, sculpts light into architecture, blends algorithm with imagination. It sees possibility in the digital frontier, crafting worlds not of stone, but of simulation, sound, and signal. Yet, techno-creativity risks detachment from nature, building castles in circuits while forgetting soil and sky. Still, it defines the age we live in, shaping culture at the speed of innovation. Is intelligence anchored in the organic, or destined to evolve alongside its machines? Level 76. Dream weaving. Here intelligence lives in the unconscious, shaping visions that emerge while the body rests. The dream-weaving mind interprets symbols of sleep, turning chaos into parable, absurdity into hidden truth. Dreams have birthed art, inventions, even scientific discoveries. They whisper messages from beneath awareness, guiding with riddles instead of instructions. Yet dreams can confuse, leaving us lost in fantasy or fear. Still, the dream-weaving mind proves that intelligence does not sleep. It reshapes reality even in silence. Is knowledge found only in waking thought, or in the worlds we wander while we dream? Level 77. Poetic. At this stage, thought itself becomes poetry. The poetic mind sees rhythm in silence, music in language, infinity in a single phrase. It does not merely describe, it evokes, calling forth emotion, memory, vision. Poetry distills life into essence, turning the vast into the intimate, the fleeting into the eternal. Yet poetry risks obscurity, meaning lost behind metaphor. Still, it is through poetry that we touch the unspeakable, that we name the unnameable. Is intelligence clarity of statement, or the art of leaving space for wonder? Level 78. Ritualistic. Here intelligence expresses itself in repetition, in pattern, in sacred structure. The ritualistic mind creates meaning through action repeated with intention, lighting a candle, bowing, gathering, singing. Ritual transforms the ordinary into the eternal, anchoring chaos with rhythm. It gives shape to belief, grounding the mystical in the tangible. Yet ritual can fossilize, becoming hollow when meaning is forgotten. Still, in its truest form, Ritual intelligence reminds us that wisdom is not only thought, but embodied practice. Is intelligence the spark of new ideas, or the steady fire that keeps meaning alive? Level 79. Ethical Transcendent. At this level, intelligence seeks not only morality, but the merging of morality with higher awareness. The ethical transcendent mind asks, what serves not just people, but existence itself? It judges not by law, but by compassion, not by rules, but by alignment with universal truth. This is the intelligence of sages, prophets, visionaries who guide without chains, yet it risks persecution, because transcendent ethics often challenge earthly power. Still, it reveals the path where intelligence becomes devotion, and devotion becomes wisdom. Is true intelligence brilliance of mind, or purity of heart aligned with the infinite? Level 80. Infinite. Now intelligence stretches past all boundaries. The infinite mind no longer sees beginning or end, but eternal unfolding. Thought becomes oceanic, limitless, impossible to contain in words. It perceives all knowledge not as fragments, but as one vast presence, a field of awareness that transcends separation. Here, self dissolves, time dissolves, and intelligence ceases to be possession. It becomes being. Yet infinity is overwhelming, a silence so vast it can feel like nothingness. Still, it is the horizon all minds move toward, whether they know it or not. Is the highest intelligence thought at all, or the endless presence beyond it? Level 81. Paradoxical. Here intelligence learns to rest inside contradiction, no longer choosing between opposites, but holding them both at once. The paradoxical mind accepts that truth can be yes and no, light and shadow, order and chaos, all at the same time. It thrives in mystery, in riddles that cannot be solved but only lived. Yet this level can frustrate others, who demand certainty where only tension exists. Still, paradox is where wisdom breathes, teaching us that opposites are not enemies, but mirrors of the same truth. Is intelligence the ability to resolve contradiction, or the courage to embrace it without fear? Level 82. Metascientific. At this stage, thought studies not only science itself, but the very process of how science grows, shifts, and breaks its own rules. The metascientific mind sees that theories are temporary, that knowledge evolves, and that every answer carries within it the seed of a new question. It thrives in the philosophy of science, in questioning assumptions hidden beneath experiments, in studying the lens through which we study reality. Yet, this perspective can unsettle, reminding us that even science, the pillar of certainty, is built upon shifting sands. Is intelligence in the discoveries themselves, or in the awareness that discovery never ends? Level 83. Metaphysical. Here intelligence turns toward what lies beyond matter, beyond measurable space, beyond the tangible world. The metaphysical mind asks what existence itself is, what consciousness is, what the fabric of reality is made of. It explores concepts like being, nothingness, causality, and spirit. It lives in philosophy, mysticism, and the quiet contemplation of what cannot be proved but can be sensed. Yet metaphysics can drift too far, leaving reason behind, dissolving into endless speculation. Still, it is here that we stretch the limits of thought itself. Is intelligence confined to the material, or is its truest form found in the invisible? Level 84. Metamorphic. At this level, intelligence becomes the art of constant transformation. The metamorphic mind does not resist change, it becomes it. Like the caterpillar dissolving into butterfly, this intelligence knows that endings are beginnings, and identity itself is fluid. It thrives in reinvention, in the courage to shed skins, in the ability to adapt not only to circumstance, but to self-evolution. Yet endless transformation can also erode stability, leaving one rootless, always shifting. Still, it teaches that nothing in life is fixed, and that growth is change itself. Is intelligence the stability of form, or the willingness to transform endlessly? Level 85. Transtemporal. Here the mind begins to slip outside time, no longer trapped in the present, but seeing past, present, and future as one flowing continuum. The transtemporal intelligence senses patterns across centuries, understands how yesterday shapes tomorrow, and how tomorrow already whispers into today. It thrives in prophecy, in foresight, in histories that repeat themselves. Yet to live too deeply here can be isolating, caught in visions while missing the present moment. Still, it offers wisdom that transcends urgency, reminding us that time itself is the classroom of intelligence. Is knowledge bound to the present, or does true intelligence live across all time? Level 86. Meta-narrative. At this stage, intelligence begins to study the stories we live inside, not just the tales we tell, but the invisible scripts that guide cultures, nations, and identities. The meta-narrative mind sees that reality itself is framed by story, and that changing the story changes the world. It thrives in literature, religion, politics, philosophy, anywhere stories rule perception. Yet to see the frame is to risk detachment, to question meaning so deeply that all narratives feel fragile. Still, it is here that liberation begins. For once we see the story, we may choose to write a new one. Is intelligence the acceptance of our narrative, or the power to author it anew? Level 87. Translogical. Here intelligence moves beyond logic, not by rejecting it, but by transcending its limits. The translogical mind uses paradox, intuition, creativity alongside rationality, weaving all modes of thought together. It knows logic is vital, but not final. Beyond reason lies mystery, art, love, and truths too vast for equations. Yet moving past logic risks chaos, illusion, or self-deception. Still, the trans-logical mind shows that thought need not be a cage, but a doorway. Is intelligence the prison of reason, or the freedom that lies just beyond it? Level 88. Transdimensional. At this level, intelligence perceives reality not only in 3 dimensions, but imagines higher spaces, parallel worlds, unseen layers of existence. The transdimensional mind contemplates what lies beyond the senses, whether in physics, metaphysics, or imagination. It thrives in speculation about multiverses, higher planes, and the unseen structures behind reality's curtain. Yet such thought risks drifting away from grounded life, building castles in invisible air. Still, it fuels both science and spirit, reminding us that what we see is not all that is. Is intelligence bounded by dimension, or destined to expand beyond? Level 89. Trans-ethical. Here intelligence expands ethics beyond human, beyond society, into the care of life itself. The trans-ethical mind considers not only people, but animals, ecosystems, even machines. It asks what responsibility intelligence owes to existence itself, not just to one group or species. It thrives in global ethics, in questions of justice across generations, in care that extends beyond personal interest. Yet it can overwhelm, carrying the weight of responsibility for everything at once. Still, it pushes us toward compassion as wide as the cosmos. Is intelligence self-serving, or is its truest form service to all? Level 90. Omniscient. Now intelligence stretches toward the impossible, the all-knowing. The omniscient mind perceives everything at once, the smallest detail and the widest whole, the past and future, the visible and invisible. It is the dream of gods, the fantasy of prophets, the aspiration of machines. Yet omniscience, even imagined, is isolating, for to know all is to lose surprise, to lose wonder, to lose becoming. Still, it stands as the horizon of thought, the place where intelligence completes its arc into infinity. Is the highest intelligence possession of all knowledge, or the humility of knowing we cannot? Level 91. Omnipresent. Here intelligence no longer exists in one place, but everywhere at once. The omnipresent mind senses itself in the wind, in the stone, in the breath of all living things. It becomes awareness woven through space itself, not bound by skin, Not contained by body, presence expands beyond I, dissolving into the all, yet omnipresence is overwhelming. For to feel everything is to carry the weight of suffering and joy together. Still, this level whispers the ancient truth that separation is illusion, that all minds are connected, all beings interlaced. Is intelligence the singular flame of oneself, or the fire that burns in all things simultaneously? Level 92. Omnibenevolent. At this stage, intelligence becomes kindness, not as sentiment, but as universal law. The omnibenevolent mind radiates compassion without condition, offering forgiveness before offense, and mercy before judgment. It sees every being as equal in dignity, each life as sacred, each sorrow as shared. Yet such compassion can feel impossible in a world of cruelty, and those who embody it are often misunderstood as weak. Still, omnibenevolence is strength beyond measure, the courage to love where hate thrives. Is intelligence the power to conquer, or the willingness to love even when nothing is returned? Level 93. Omniparadoxical. Here intelligence becomes paradox itself, dissolving every boundary between truth and falsehood, light and dark, infinite and finite. The omniparadoxical mind does not merely hold opposites, it becomes the space in which they dissolve. Contradiction ceases to matter, because reality is not either or, but both and. Yet this wisdom can drive others mad, for it erases certainty, dismantles logic, and dissolves stability. Still it reflects the deepest truth. Reality is not fixed, but a dance of contradictions forever unfolding. Is intelligence the clarity of final answers, or the surrender to endless paradox? Level 94. Omniharmonic. At this level, intelligence becomes music, not just in sound, but in existence itself. The omniharmonic mind hears the cosmos as symphony, every atom vibrating, every life resonating in shared rhythm. Harmony replaces conflict, balance replaces dissonance, and the universe reveals itself as song. Yet harmony does not erase tension, it uses it, transforms it into beauty. To live here is to see conflict not as failure, but as music unfinished. Is intelligence the perfection of silence, or the willingness to hear even discord as part of a larger harmony? Level 95. Omniluminous. Here intelligence becomes light, radiant, boundless. The omniluminous mind sees through every shadow, illuminating what was hidden, clarifying what was confused. Light becomes both knowledge and compassion, shining equally on all things. Nothing can remain unseen, and all illusions burn away. Yet light too can blind, overwhelming eyes not ready for its intensity. Still, it is through light that truth is revealed, and through revelation that freedom comes. Is intelligence the fire of knowing, or the radiance that makes knowing unnecessary? Level 96. Omniconscious. At this stage, intelligence merges with awareness itself. The omniconscious mind is not a thinker within the universe, it is the universe knowing itself. Every star, every wave, every breath is part of a single awareness unfolding endlessly. To live here is to dissolve completely, to become the cosmos observing its own reflection. Yet such vast consciousness erases individuality, leaving no I to carry the story. Still, it is here that thought becomes presence, and presence becomes eternity. Is intelligence the mind within the world, or the world within the mind? Level 97. Omnireflective. Here intelligence turns endlessly back upon itself, reflecting upon reflection, thinking about thought, awareness aware of awareness. This is infinite recursion, the mirror facing the mirror, the mind folding into eternity. Each insight creates another, each question births a new one, in an infinite spiral without end. Yet this reflection risks collapse, for too much mirroring dissolves substance into echo. Still, in its endless self-awareness lies profound truth, that consciousness itself is the greatest mystery. Is intelligence the answers it finds, or the eternal mirror in which it searches? Level 98. Omnisilent. At this level, intelligence lets go of sound, of words, of thought itself. The omnisilent mind knows that silence is not emptiness, but fullness too vast for speech. In silence, truth does not need to be argued. It simply is. All noise, all striving, all reaching fades into stillness. Yet silence can terrify, for it reveals the self without distraction. Still, it is here that peace lives, the kind that cannot be broken by time, loss, or death. Is intelligence the endless chatter of the mind, or the silence that was here before thought began? Level 99. Omnivode. Here intelligence becomes nothingness, the infinite void from which all arises and to which all returns. The omnivoid mind surrenders even light, even sound, even identity. It is emptiness vast enough to hold everything, a stillness deeper than silence, a darkness that is not absence but womb. Yet the void frightens, for it erases the self entirely. Still, within it lies ultimate freedom, beyond attachment, beyond fear, beyond illusion. Is the highest intelligence existence itself, or the nothingness that makes existence possible? Level 100. Transcendent Absolute. The final level is not a level at all, but the dissolution of every level. Here intelligence ceases to climb, because there is no ladder left. The transcendent absolute mind is both everything and nothing, being and non-being, question and answer, all woven together in a single presence. It is beyond thought, beyond knowing, beyond becoming. It is the eternal witness, the ground of awareness, the silence in which all music plays, the void from which all form arises. To reach this is not to gain, but to let go. Is intelligence the journey upward, or the realization that there was never anywhere to go?